Hey Phoebe. Hey guys.
Hi Jordane.
So, what are we discussing?
We're discussing the poem Speech to the Young, Speech to Progress Toward by Gwendolyn Brooks, and it's on page 13. Paige, would you like to read the prompt?
Okay, Lillian. The prompt is, how could the theme of the poem apply to society today? Compare and contrast the meaning of this poem today and its meaning during the time it was written. First of all, what do you guys think the theme of the poem is?
Well, I'm sorry about the pun, but I think the theme could be that you should accept change in the world and learn to accept everybody. Because in stanza 1, it states, even if you are not ready for day, it cannot always be night.
I thought it was about facing your battles to make you stronger, because the first stanza talks about the downkeepers, sunslappers, self-soilers, and harmony hushers. So the poet's message to the reader, since she uses negative words, might be to kind of ignore these people and live your normal life.
Yeah, maybe. But maybe it's not necessarily being accepting of change. It could be about compromising, like you said, and being accepting of everyone's opinions and changing yourself and the world.
I believe the theme of the poem is relating to something about self-empowerment.
Or it could be about being equal and accepting everyone around you, not just yourself.
Well, it's almost like shunning people who are low in your self-esteem. And maybe the poet is talking about kind of everything we just discussed, like unifying the world through peace and being respectful to others.
I agree with the idea of change in the world, but the poem talks a lot about self-empowerment. This poem was written in 1932, and Gwendolyn Brooks stood up for her beliefs, which is empowering at the time. It's showing women's rights because she was an African-American woman. This might imply that she was not really receiving any equality.
I don't think this is about human rights because the title is Speech to the Young.
Well, maybe she's trying to tell the young that they need to cooperate and try to make change in the world, with human rights.
Well, to add on to Lillian, the poem's influence on society at that time, kind of sent this powerful message about women, since men at that time were kind of known as superior, and women known as like housemaids. Gwendolyn Brooks making this really bold statement about how society should be was really empowering.
Maybe the author is trying to portray to the young that they can make change in the world. If not, then they will just live in a society where no one with different races or gender is considered equal.
Well, what's your evidence for that?
Oh, I was reading the poem and I thought maybe the phrase harmony hushers could be evidence because, harmony means everyone being together and, being peaceful and getting along. And, well, if you're trying to stop harmony, then you're also trying to stop equality because that's basically what it is.
Well, on a different topic, do you guys think the poet's message is meant to be told to other generations, not just the young?
Yes.
No.
Oh, yeah, because there are a lot of people working for social change, not just young people. Everyone has downkeepers and harmony hushers in their lives.
Yes, because even though there has been a lot of change over time, not a lot of people are accepting others because they're different in some way.
Well, Jordane, why don't you think it can't be shared at all?
Well, I disagree because the title is Speech to the Young.
Well, what do you if you ignore the title?
Oh, that makes more sense. Anyways, as I was reading the poem, I had some questions that came up on the entire text. Why do you think the author wrote this poem? Was there an event that occurred which made them want to write it?
I just think those are good questions. I was doing some research on the author the other day, and a lot of her poems are about promoting equality. She grew up in Chicago in the 1930s, and there was a lot of problems like racism. She talks about the struggle of people in less fortunate areas, so she might have been inspired by that. And she was 15 when she wrote this, so she grew up with that.
Also, the first stanza uses descriptions such as downkeepers and self-soilers. These types of people could be the types of people that were in her life, since she grew up with a lot of problems.
I noticed that our world has evolved different to these other times.
Well, in what ways?
Well, there are more rights for African American and women, but different problems now. More people have to fight for gun control and as well as the LGBT plus community. These are somewhat different than the time before.
To add on, this time period wasn't so far away from the end of slavery. Problems such as racism still go on today. This might have been written to younger people, focusing on change as showing an example of role models.
Yeah, it was referencing more stereotypical racism and sexism that I might have seen in old movies, but now it may have a broader spread with, social and government problems.
Do you think the author accomplished their goal by writing this?
Well, in my research, it took me a very long time to find it on Google, so obviously it was not one of the more popular poems, so less people probably saw it.
Even if this was not a popular poem, putting this poem out to share her thoughts might have been an accomplishment by itself. It discusses many problems in society back then and even today.
The title was Speech to the Young, Speech to the Progress Toward. So maybe she wants the readers to use this poem like a guide to like.
Okay, but then why'd she add live not for the battles won?
Well, you don't want to live for victory, you want to live for peace. Battles have a bad connotation, but it states, live in the along. And this represents unity, peace, and equality. I think that's the main goal, not to establish who has a higher role in society or who's more superior, but kind of like to create equal balance between people.
Yeah, I agree. It's like compromising and reaching agreements, and live not for the battles won is part of her advice.
Then what is the theme?
Well, I think that a good thing may be influencing others to work towards change, equality, and overcoming hardships through peace will probably lead to a better world.
That sounds about right. So how does this apply to society today?
Well, like we discussed, it talks about change and equality, which are things we are all working toward today for people of different genders, races, religions, and sexualities.
Okay, and for the part of its meaning in 1932, we agreed that it may have focused more on racial and gender equality since Gwendolyn Brooks, an African-American woman in the time where it didn't have much equality, right?
Correct. I think that we answered the whole entire problem. Good job, guys.
Okay, yeah, we did great.
Gotta go.